Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Waterloo Wednesday webinar. Today is, of course, Wednesday, February 3rd, our first webinar of February 2021, and we are excited to bring you today's topic on campus wellness at the University of Waterloo. As you explore your post-secondary options, you want to ensure that you choose a place where you're going to have access to the resources you need to help keep you safe and healthy. And so this evening, we'll let you know how we're offering those supports at Waterloo. Of course, before we begin, we'll encourage you to ask questions throughout the session. We will be answering, working away behind the scenes. Our staff will make sure that you get answers to all of your questions. And of course, we'll also do a Q&A at the end of our session. And if you have any questions, perhaps later on after we finish, you can send us your emails to liaison@uwaterloo.ca. If you'd like to have captions for this session, you can click on the three dots in the middle of your screen and then click on Turn on Live Captions to be able to access those. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, hello, my name is Laura and I am one of your co-hosts of the Waterloo Wednesday webinar series. I am a national recruiter at Waterloo. I use she, her pronouns, and I am also a graduate of the Honors Arts and Business program where I majored in French. And with me, as almost always, is our co-host Jay. Jay, I don't know if you can see outside right now, but it's about 5:00 p.m. on a Wednesday. And there's sun outside, and it's been a very long time since we've seen that.
Yeah, this has been good to be able to have a Waterloo Wednesday at 5 p.m. our time and still have light coming in through the window. So this is nice.
Yep.
We'll see if Wyerton Willie predicted things correctly here. So yeah, hi everyone, my name is Jay and I use the pronouns he and him. Thanks again for joining us this week. Similar to Laura, I also graduated from our Honors Arts and Business program, but I majored in history. So although I did take a French Revolution history course, so a little bit of a crossover there. But yeah, thanks again for joining us this week to learn a little bit more about campus wellness at Waterloo. We are coming to you from our homes. We are not on campus right now, but it is still important for us to acknowledge that we do live and work and study on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. The University of Waterloo is situated on the Haldimand Tract, land that was promised to the Six Nations and includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. And we hope that regardless of where you are joining us from today, you'll also take the time to respect and recognize the traditional territories that you are currently on as well. All right, so in the next hour or so, we're just going to remind you about some upcoming events at Waterloo. We're going to share our weekly story that I think Laura is going to share today. We'll get into the main part of our presentation, which is again about campus wellness and 2 of our guests that we have joining us. And then of course, the weekly quiz will be coming up near the end. We've got a few questions for you and I think we'll give away 2 today. So make sure you're listening to the presentation because that's where you are going to find the answers to this week's quiz. So make sure you are listening closely. And then as Laura mentioned, you can send in your questions at any point. Our team is working on the Q&A. But we will have some time at the end as well. All right, so some upcoming events to take note of. Again, obviously, like most Wednesdays between now and the end of May, we are bringing you these webinars, different themes and topics. We've got a couple more student panels coming up. We'll be chatting with representatives from housing, from athletics, and next week we've got our finance reps here, so make sure you check that out. And February the 18th is our grade 10 family night. So for younger students out there looking for some tips on how to start preparing for university, check that out. You can find a link from our tours and events website there. Sign up and it's again, Thursday, February 18th at 6 p.m. We'll be sharing more information for you there. Don't forget, you can get your brochures. We've got our general Waterloo View Book. We've got faculty and program brochures. We'll send these to you for free right to your door. Just leave us your mailing address. You can also download those instantly as well. And if you have any questions after this webinar, or if you're watching the recording and think of some questions, you can get in touch with us, liaison@uwaterloo.ca, and we will be happy to help you out. So that's some things to take note of. Laura, do you have a story you'd like to share with us this week?
I sure do. And the story is what you might call hot off the press. Just read about it this morning myself. And it is about a new program that's being offered by St. Paul's University College, which is part of the University of Waterloo. And specifically within St. Paul's, it's being administered by the Waterloo Indigenous Student Center and the Greenhouse Social Impact Incubator at St. Paul's. And essentially, it is a new program for Indigenous post-secondary students from across Canada who will be interested in participating in this entrepreneurship training program. So it's going to be specifically tailored to meet the needs of Indigenous youth and their communities, while also training the organizations that are involved in cultural competencies required to work with Indigenous youth. And basically, students are going to be able to get classroom coaching from notable Indigenous entrepreneurs, such as Jacob Crane, who you can see here, who's actually going to be the program manager. And students will be able to get credit for it and even compete for up to $3,000 in funding to launch their venture. So Waterloo is kind of known for being a hub for entrepreneurship, and we're very excited to see what Indigenous entrepreneurs, not only from Waterloo but from across Canada, will be able to do here. So pretty exciting stuff. Okay, so we've got lots more to share with you today on the topic that is one that we haven't really addressed before in a Waterloo Wednesday, and that is campus wellness. So we have a couple of individuals who are joining us to tell us about resources available and experiences and that sort of thing. And we'll start off by meeting our first guest, Jennifer. So Jennifer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer McCorston. My pronouns are she and her. I'm the Associate Director of Health Promotion and Campus Wellness. So maybe a bit about myself. I'm a kinesiology grad, and then I did some clinical work before really finding my passion in health promotion and doing a master's. And then after doing that, I worked in public health for many years before coming to the university in 2017. So I'm happy that I can be at UW to promote the health and well-being of students.
Thanks for joining us this week, Jennifer. We've got a few questions for you. To start off, campus wellness. Can you let us know a little bit more about what that is at Waterloo and some of the services that are associated with it?
Sure. So campus wellness is the department that's ultimately responsible for the wellness of students. And we really think about wellness on a continuum. So we want to do everything from prevention and promotion to keep people well, in addition to intervention and treatment. And so we have three main services. So we have health services, counseling services, and then health promotion, which is what I do. And as you can imagine, then we do everything from, what your primary care physician would do back home to doing mental health supports to education and training. So I'll talk about a little bit more about those in a minute. But I also want to say that as part of campus wellness, we work a lot with our off-campus partners too. So, if you come to us and you need a referral to see a specialist, or you need x-rays or ultrasounds, or need to be connected off campus, we definitely do that as well. And we also, in addition to having our buildings on campus, we actually have embedded a lot of our mental health counselors into our satellite locations, into co-op. Each faculty has mental health counselors embedded, and residents as well. So we serve all of the students in a variety of ways, embedded into different programs and areas.
Sorry about that, everyone. My mic's a little slow today. Wonderful. So it's great to know that there are so many services in place to support student wellness at Waterloo. And I know for many of the students who are listening, they're starting to think about what university is going to look like, whether that's in person or in the fall, or whether the return to campuses in the following year. But could you tell us a little bit more about each of the services offered that you mentioned, maybe talking about specific facilities and staff and resources? And we can start off with health services.
Yeah, so health services is made up of doctors and nurses and nurse practitioners, and they do everything from, cold, flu, strep throat to birth control to STI testing. A lot of our physicians also see students for mental health services and supports, and they can make referrals on to psychiatrists if appropriate. And we also have everything, from wart clinics to wound care to allergy injections. And I think that we also do immunizations, which we also offer a travel clinic. So for those students who may be doing co-op overseas or internationally, like I think that's very important because you can come talk to a physician about what vaccines you might need to go do that safely. So that's one of the services we offer. I think another great service that maybe is unique to UW is we have a lab on site as well, so that we can draw blood, take urine samples if the doctor needs those things. And in addition to the student clinic, we actually a couple years ago started recognizing that for some of our graduate students and postdocs that were bringing families with them from overseas, there wasn't anywhere they could go for their family to receive medical support. So we created the family clinic, and so we offer the same services. Of course, you'll probably see a lot more prenatal care there and well baby visits, but we sort of have the student clinic and the family clinic. So I think that's we're really comprehensive in that way. And during COVID, I just wanted to add that even though you can't physically walk into the building, we're still having the same amount of access, and we're still providing all of those services virtually. Of course, if you do need to be seen in person, like you need a vaccine, that we can't do that, of course, over the phone, you will be seen in person, but you can't physically walk through the doors. So right now we're just, for all health services, you just have to call ahead and set up an appointment, and then you'll be seen probably virtually.
And it's great to know that these services exist right on campus when students are on campus as well, but that there's still access to these things right now during this time when they aren't on campus. And I actually had my flu shot done at the health services building earlier in the winter, so staff have been using it as well. So when it comes to paying for anything that might have costs, like are students expected to pay out of pocket for these sorts of things, or does our coverage work, or how can they access these financially?
Yeah, so any student that's an Ontario resident would of course be covered by OHIP. And if you are a student coming from other parts of Canada, your regular provincial healthcare coverage would follow you. And then if you're from the US or somewhere international, you're required to have UHIP coverage, which essentially is built into your tuition. And what that does is provides you with pretty much the same level of service that like Ontario coverage would provide. Of course, there's some exceptions, but that is something that is not optional. That's charged right through your tuition. And so for those that maybe have questions about that, I would definitely go to the Waterloo site and look up UHIP, and you can see everything that's covered and how much that costs. And then in addition to that, through your student union fees, whether you're an undergrad or a graduate student, we also have extended healthcare coverage through Sun Life, and that's something you pay through your student union fees, and that would be for things like physio, massage, dental care, vision. And so that is something you can opt out of if you have coverage through, say, your parents or through a partner, but you just have to show proof of that. So I think we have a pretty good, as I said, this is all built into your tuition or your student union fees for all of these services that we offer.
That's one of those things that I'd wish I'd looked into more when I was a student, was not really realizing how much coverage I had. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons it's so great to know, as you're preparing for university, what all the different institutions offer you. And since we are connecting with prospective students today, I know some of them might be wondering how they can keep their regular prescriptions filled or continue regular appointments or treatments with doctors and other healthcare providers once they start at Waterloo. So could you talk about how they would ensure that they have all the resources they need for that?
Sure. So we really want to provide continuity of care if you're coming to U Waterloo. So what I would encourage people to do, whether you're going to come to U Waterloo or not, is have a conversation with your family physician sometime this spring, summer about what medical records or prescriptions you have and how you would be able to get those transferred to your post-secondary institution. And so if you're going to come to UW, I would suggest also sometime in the spring, summer, calling over to Campus Wellness. And again, asking what's the best way to get some of those medical records transferred over. The other thing I would say is we have a pharmacy actually in the Student Life Center of U Waterloo. So that's a convenient way for students to get their prescriptions filled while they're here. And whether you choose that as your pharmacy or somewhere else in the UW region, again, just talking to your family physician that's prescribed those things and making sure you can get those transferred to the appropriate pharmacy so that when you start in September, you have those already at your fingertips. And then the other thing I would just suggest is also keeping records of your immunizations at all times and just having those handy with you so that you know what you're vaccinated for, and then you know if you need a catch-up or if there's ever an outbreak of anything. You know, cross our fingers, there wouldn't be, but you would know sort of what vaccinations you've received, because depending on where you are across Canada and across the world, those tend to differ. So just having your immunization records handy as well.
All right, so moving to one of our other services that are offered now. We just recently had Bell Let's Talk Day here in Canada and in North America, which I'm sure most of our audience is familiar with or has seen in some respect, and the Waterloo community was part of that as well. So obviously taking care of yourself mentally is very important, especially as a university student. What sorts of things is Waterloo doing to support students with their mental health?
Yeah, so Jay, I think you've touched on something really important. Like, mental health is a huge topic right now, especially for young people. So at Waterloo, we've worked really hard to try to increase our supports and services for mental health. And so we have counseling services. As I mentioned before, you can speak to a physician, but you can also come to counseling services. What I like to tell people is there's no wrong door. So if you're a student and you're like, where do I go first? It doesn't matter. Just call Campus Wellness and the receptionist will get you hooked up with whatever you need. So in terms of counseling services specifically, we offer everything from one-on-one counseling to walk-ins to same-day appointments. And we've really tried over the last year to also increase our diversity of counselors available. So what I can say right now is we have no wait list for counseling. The only caveat to that is if you're wanting to see a very specific counselor for, say, trans health needs or LGBTQ, or if you're looking to see a counselor that speaks Mandarin, there's a bit of a wait list, but other than that, you can see any counselor. So how it sort of works is you would, at this point, during COVID, you would call in, you would see an intake specialist right away that same day. The intake specialist would walk through a series of questions to sort of assess your level of urgency and need. And depending on what they think that you need, that they would give you the appropriate plan and connect you to the appropriate services. And so every student leaves with a plan. So I think, as I said, during COVID, in normal times, you would walk right in and you can sort of speak to reception, but that doesn't mean that because our doors are locked, it doesn't mean that we're not providing the same level of service. It's just most of our counseling right now is done virtually, with the small percentage of students that need to be seen in person. And then the only other things I want to touch on that are great mental health supports at UW beyond what Campus Wellness offers is we have Empower Me. So that's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week telephone virtual counseling service that all students can access if you're with the GSA, which is our Graduate Student Association, or the Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association. So that's a great alternative source if it's after hours or you don't feel comfortable talking to us in Campus Wellness. And then also for undergraduate students, our Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association, also known as WUSA, they have a program called MATES, which is a peer-to-peer support. So if you're feeling like, you know what, I might not want to talk to a mental health counselor because I'm feeling homesick, or I got a bad grade, or I just broke up with my partner, I just want to talk to a peer. That's another great service. And these are peers that are trained in mental health. They're not counselors, but they're there to support you as a peer. And that's something that I know is readily available for undergraduate students.
That's awesome to know. I think there's never a one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to physical or mental health. So great to know that there are so many different resources available to Waterloo students. So yeah, I think when we talk about wellness, we often think about like doctors' offices, or increasingly talking more so about counseling services and that kind of thing. But at Waterloo, there's also a lot of educational work that goes on related to student health too. So what kind of initiatives does Waterloo offer on that front?
Yeah, that's a great question, Laura. We do offer seminars, workshops, psychoeducational training. So we have a series called Coping Skills Seminars, and I think it's great because maybe you don't feel that you need to seek direct one-on-one counseling, but you want to do some things preventatively to keep yourself mentally healthy and well. So we've got lots of workshops. We've got mental health training. So one of those is called Question, Persuade, Refer, or QPR. And that's learning how to recognize signs and symptoms of suicide, both for self and others, and how to talk to a friend or family member that you feel like might be at risk of suicide. So lots of great workshops. We also do We have what are called peer health educators in campus wellness. So these are trained volunteers that go around campus with workshops and booths at the Student Life Center on a variety of topics, whether it's substance use, mental health, physical activity. So they hand out information and answer questions. And then Campus Wellness has a very active social media platforms, Twitter and Facebook, so you can find online information, blogs, in addition to our website.
All right, and focusing more on another campaign that I've seen happen on campus before. When we are on campus, it's common at certain times of the year that we'll see many of our staff and students and faculty in black and gold t-shirts that say Thrive on them. And so can you tell us a little bit more about what this Thrive campaign is and what it hopes to accomplish? And for our audience, you may want to make note of this one just in case it's a quiz question. But yeah, what can you tell me about that, Jennifer?
Okay, so Thrive, sort of like Bell Let's Talk Day, is a day to reduce stigma and promote awareness of mental health. Thrive is a week-long series of events that a lot of post-secondary institutions have adopted. So places like UBC and Queen's and Laurier, and we're one of them. We've adopted this week-long event, usually late October, early November. And again, the purpose of Thrive is to really normalize mental health, the fact that we all have mental health, sometimes positive, sometimes not so positive, but it's normal to have these ups and downs, and we really want to normalize help-seeking behaviors and promote the great services we have on campus. So the thing about Thrive is that we have a week-long series of events and workshops and trainings. We've done a walk in the past. We've done a campus-wide yoga event, cooking seminars. So it's also about getting students and staff to really learn more about healthy habits that can also help in their mental health.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing all of this information, Jennifer. We are definitely going to come back to you with some questions later on from the audience. But in the meantime, we thought it would be helpful to bring in a guest who could share a little bit more of the current student perspective. So I want to say welcome to Ben. And Ben, if you'd like to take a second and tell us a little bit more about yourself, maybe share your program and what you're involved with at Waterloo.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Ben. I am a fourth-year co-op student in geography and environmental management. I go by he, him pronouns. And on the side, I am also the mental health and wellness director for the Environment Student Society. So that's kind of like the umbrella student society for all of the students in the Faculty of Environment.
And do you want to tell us a little bit about who's in that photo with you, Ben?
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's actually my friend's dog. I was house sitting for him while he was away. My dog looks similar to that, but not exactly the same.
I find dogs are a key part of wellness at this this period that we're living in.
Yeah, on that note too, like we've had therapy dogs come into residence as part of like a mental health floor event. So that's
awesome.
That's always something fun to look forward to.
Very cool.
And we know that head scratches are great for the humans and for the dogs for sure. So Ben, thanks for joining us this week. We thought that especially with your position with the Environment Student Society, that you'd be a great person to chat with, get both the student perspective, but also because of the role that you have within the Environment Student Society. So can you let us know a little bit more about what it means that you're the mental health and wellness director and what you do in that role that helps Waterloo students take some time to focus on their well-being?
Yeah, sure. So in the fall, I ran for the position of mental health and wellness director, and I was fortunate enough to get elected to that position. And what I do in that position is I share things that I've learned that I think would be helpful with other students through social media. So I might make a weekly video or a weekly post where students can learn about some aspect of mental health or their well-being. I like to include a variety of different topics, and then I will also link people to other resources as well that Campus Wellness might be offering, or even just some external things that might be helpful as well.
That sounds great. And Ben, you, like Waterloo students and so many students around the world these days have experienced some pretty big changes over the last year. And along with those changes, of course, there's going to be challenges and new obstacles. So with those new experiences you're encountering, what have you discovered works for you and your classmates when it comes to really prioritizing your wellness in this new kind of virtual learning environment?
I think one of the biggest things that everyone has been struggling with, especially on the student side of stuff, is the isolation from both your friends and support, and the support you might get from that, and also just isolation from the classroom, because it's hard to keep on top of things when you're disconnected physically from an environment that traditionally has always been there to foster a sense of learning and growth, and also your well-being. So what I've found has worked really well in those situations is taking the time to build connection wherever you can. So making sure you're keeping connected with your friends, with your family, and also keeping connected with your classmates and building connection there, because everyone's kind of going through it together. And I've been lucky enough to be in classes where everyone hops on a Discord server and we can talk about our classwork, or we're on a group chat and we can ask each other questions, and we have kind of rallied around this need to talk to each other and built a sense of community in some of our classes. And it's been a real big, it feels like someone kind of throws you a life preserver sometimes, because it can really help you when you're feeling stuck. And it's something too that I find keeps people coming back, because the social side of the school experience is just as important as the academic part, and it's often what keeps us involved.
All right, Ben. So I follow the ESS account on Instagram, and so that's where I've seen you post some helpful tips and resources for students. And I've heard you mention the wellness challenges that you've been putting out there for students to participate in. Can you let us know a little bit more about what those are and why you think they're important for students to engage in those?
Yeah, so to kind of address the issues that students are facing, I created this 12-week challenge program to help people overcome some of those obstacles, especially with some of the isolating things, and also acknowledge that as students, we're spending so much time on our screens, and we're kind of reaching this virtual burnout phase where people don't want to do more things online, but sometimes it feels like it's the only option we have. So I wanted to create something around that. And so what I did with this challenge program is I made these different challenges. So each week there is a fun challenge and an academic related challenge. And the goal is that you do these with your roommates. And if you don't have roommates, then you can do them with a friend or a virtual partner. And it's designed to help you be deliberate about having fun, and then also help you keep on top of your academics. So for example, last week's challenge, the fun challenge, was just setting a time aside to make sure you're planning to interact with your friends, whether it is eating together every day, if you have roommates. It could be something like everybody watches a show at the same time. It could be everybody goes on a walk together, or Friday night is movie night kind of thing. And then the academic challenge is setting up all of your due dates and deadlines for the term. And so students will take a picture of them completing each of these challenges, and then share it with ESS in whatever way they are comfortable, and they get entered into a prize draw to win a sustainable prize.
That's really cool. And I think, when so many of us are in the same place all the time, the days just start to blend together. So to have kind of structured things to look forward to, and also have that sense of kind of peer accountability without there being too much pressure is a great way to get students motivated too. So that's awesome that you're doing that, Ben. And so my next question for you is a question that's really not only about university students, but high school students as well. So, with the online classes, being away from your peers physically, maybe having to have a little bit more of that self-motivation. What are some wellness tips that you have, both for university students as well as high school students, that they should keep in mind right now?
Yeah, there's a good amount there. I feel like when I put myself in like high school like mindset, like when I'm looking back, I'm like, oh, there's so many things like I want to be able to tell myself to get myself prepared. But yeah, so anyway, so some things that I think would be helpful to focus on is focus on what you do have control over. A lot of times we can get caught up with the problems that we're facing and not necessarily realize the power that we have to change our own situation. So sometimes it just takes a little bit more creativity, or looking something up or asking someone for help. Always come back to the basics of sleep, getting outside, exercise, and connection are super important. And see if you can develop some self-care strategies for yourself. It's good to practice them now, and then you can build some self-awareness over time, and you can kind of monitor how you feel throughout different challenges and different points in the day, and then you can kind of realize when you need to access a certain resource. And just and also too, like, explore what works for you.
All right, Ben. So earlier, Jennifer mentioned some different resources and services that are available on campus to Waterloo students. Are there any in particular that you recommend students use, or even that are just good for prospective students to be aware of when they are choosing a university, just so they know that that is something available to them? And similar to that, are there any in general that you encourage students to check out or look into once they are a student at the university?
Yeah. So coming into the mental health and wellness director position, I wanted to make sure I was aware of the different resources that were on campus. And so I was like surprised to learn that there's so many free workshops that are offered throughout the term that are really helpful for students. And they cover a variety of different issues. Like, for example, I've taken a time management workshop, which was super helpful because it was only like an hour of my time, but the strategies I used from that I continue to use now. But I've also taken things on the mental health side of things, like Jennifer had mentioned earlier about the question, persuade, and refer workshop about suicide prevention, which I felt was important to take, as so many of us are experiencing adverse mental health effects with the whole like lockdown restrictions and everything going on, and the effects of isolation. So I thought that was worthwhile as well. And that's just like a taste of the different, that's just two of the workshops that are offered for free. And there's also a lot of peer-to-peer stuff that's going on as well. Like Jennifer had mentioned UW Mates as a peer-to-peer support service, but also through Warrior Recreation, they have the Move Your Mind program, which is a buddy system for getting people to get active and work out together in a totally like judgment-free setting and build a healthy relationship with exercise for your mental health. So there's all kinds of stuff out there too. So it's important to just keep looking and kind of have a way to keep in touch with what's going on too. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, one more question for you, Ben, before we turn over to some of our questions from the audience. And that is, hope this isn't too big of a question, but what do you wish you knew or wish more students knew before starting at university as it relates to mental health and wellness?
Yeah. This is a fun question, because it's kind of like, if I was to like write myself a letter from like, dear me in first year, like what would I include in that letter? And there's definitely some things that you can do in high school that are going to be setting you up for success in life, whether or not it's university or anything that comes back to mental health and wellness. So one would be taking the time to develop some self-care strategies. For example, looking at how to relax in the midst of stressful times when you have competing deadlines and lots of different class demands. It might be helpful to look at tips for managing change transitions. If you are looking into a co-op program where you start to have a work term sequence and you're moving every 4 months, it can be worth your time to look at how to manage those transitions more efficiently or effectively, because that can be a tough time for people sometimes. Building that self-awareness can be helpful. And asking for help is huge. Sometimes I think when the mental health conversation can get stigmatized, but asking for help should never be seen as a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength to allow yourself to be that vulnerable and go get that help that you think you need, as difficult as it feels. So, if it's going to help you, make sure you get out there and you do it. And then just a couple, I guess, two more things is be willing to see opportunities and get out of your comfort zone. University is a time for you to grow, and there's always options. So there's flexibility available, and it's university is what you make of it, and you have the power to create lots of amazing things and opportunities for yourself. So have an open mind and give things a chance.
Yeah, and I think those are great pieces of advice when it comes to wellness, but also the university experience in general, kind of regardless of which institution students end up at. So thank you, Ben, and thank you, Jennifer, once again for all of the great information and insight that you shared so far. We are going to head into our quiz just before we get into the Q&A. So as a reminder for anyone who's done the quiz before, or information for anyone who is new to Waterloo Wednesdays, we are going to have 3 questions for you on the next slide. And if you would like to compete for the prize of a Waterloo hoodie, and we have 2 to give away this evening, what you have to do is include responses to all 3 questions, as well as your email address and your first name, if you'd like to include it, in one Q&A box, and send that in to us. Make sure it's all in one. If you send the responses in individually, we won't be able to see which came from who. And the first person to get all 3 questions correct and include their email address in there, the first 2 people actually will win a prize. So if you're not feeling confident, I will let you know that last week it took a full minute or so for us to get a winner. So if you're kind of like, oh, my chances aren't that great of winning, you might as well give it a try, because you could go home, or not go home, but you could end up having a Waterloo hoodie shipped to you as a winner. Okay, so here we go with our questions. What is one of the 3 services offered by Campus Wellness? So Jennifer mentioned 3 specific services earlier in our session, and we just need you to name one of those 3. Now, she also talked about a week that we host at Waterloo, and other universities across Canada do it as well, where our students and our staff and faculty volunteers wear gold t-shirts promoting this week that focuses on mental wellness. What is the name of that week? I think Jay kind of gave us a little hint earlier that this was going to be one of the quiz questions. And number 3, what is one way that you focus on your own wellness? And there are no correct or incorrect answers here. I mean, I think that means that all answers are correct. But you could say doing yoga, or taking your dog for a walk, or going swimming, hopefully somewhere warmer than the outdoors of Waterloo these days. But any of those answers work. But you might want to prefer to share your own responses instead. So I know Jay is looking through responses for a winner right now. And oops, I guess I can tell you the answers to these questions, actually. So question number 1, the 3 services offered by Campus Wellness are health services, counseling services, and health promotion. So we only needed one of those in order to get the correct answer there. The second one is that week that focuses on wellness is Thrive Week, where we've got those gold shirts on. And number 3, once again, it's up to you as to what a method for focusing on wellness might be for you. And it looks like we do have a couple of winners already. So Andreas and Megan, congratulations. We will reach out to you about getting your prize. If there are multiple Andreas or Megans here today, I'm very sorry if you are not the winner, but we will connect with those who sent in their email addresses to us, who gave us all those correct answers. So congratulations to our winners. If you didn't win a prize this week, feel free to come back for a future Waterloo Wednesday webinar. We're giving away hoodies all the time, and you never know when your lucky week will be. Okay, Jay, would you like to start off with the Q&A this evening?
Sure, I can do that.
Awesome.
Got a couple of questions I saw come in that seem to be on people's minds. So I'll start off with a couple of those. The first one was around residence supports. So a student just wondering what sorts of things are available in the residence itself. And so there's quite a few things. So I tried to make a list here, and I know Lindsay provided some responses in the chat as well. But first of all, every residence does have a Don, and a Don is an upper year student who kind of is the first point of contact on a lot of residence floors. They also go through a lot of training. So a lot of the training that Ben had mentioned, but they do this kind of in the summer and before first year students move in. So they're well versed with all of the resources on campus, and there's someone that you can find just down the hall that you can go to. So you've got your residence Don. Lots of upper year residents or upper year students live in residence as well. Some of them will be in different leadership positions, but just the fact that they've kind of gone through things already, they're a great resource to have in your different residence options. Other first year students, remember that when you go to university, sometimes it can feel like, maybe things are a little bit more challenging. You haven't met a lot of people. Classes are different than they were in high school. It's important to remember that everyone else is having that exact same feeling as you. And so connecting with your peers and again, your residence Don is probably going to set up ways that you can connect with those students, but using the common spaces. You don't always have to stay in your room in residence. There's lounges and the cafeterias and different spaces you can use to start connecting with other students and just have those conversations, because you'll find that you have a lot in common with them, especially when you first move in. I also wrote down that there's different living learning communities. So if you're part of one of those, depending on your program, you can connect with students that way. Again, upper year students who will help you more on the academic side of things with tutoring. Some of our residences have counselors that are right in the building. Some of them also have chaplains that you can go see regardless of your faith or no faith. That's another person that you can go and chat with. And as I think Ben mentioned, make sure you're taking advantage of the physical fitness as well. So whether it's if your residence has a gym there, or if you're using one of the more central gyms and fitness studios on campus, make sure you're taking time for that. So certainly lots of supports within residence itself. And then as we've talked about, there are lots of ways that you can connect with people, professionals on campus as well. Another question we had come in was about pets on campus. And unfortunately, I don't believe that pets are allowed in the residence, as much as we would love to bring our dogs or our hamsters or our cats. But with that said, support animals are allowed. They will obviously have to be, I'm not sure the correct term, but confirmed by a medical professional. And so if that is the case where you are somebody who is looking to bring a support animal with you to university, just make sure that you are in touch with us. But we'll send you that information once you go through the residence process, so you can get all of that. So those are a couple of questions that I found, Laura. What about you? Anything that you saw?
Yeah, I have a question that I'm going to direct to Jennifer, and that is about maybe some additional student supports that are outside of campus wellness, but still kind of connected in some ways. I know a big part of wellness for many students is being able to connect with others and really build a strong sense of community at university. But for some students, this can be more challenging. So could you talk about some of the services offered on campus to maybe allow students to connect and find their own communities?
Yeah, I think Ben touched on some too. Like, I think a great supports are the peer-to-peer programs. So a lot of faculties do have peer programs or peer mentorship programs. I know the library has a program, and I think at last count there was like at least over 100 peer programs across campus. And so even the Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association, called WUSA, they have tons of clubs and programs. And I remember looking at the list one time going, oh my gosh, you could find a club, a program for anything. So I think it's just about looking and finding the people that you most connect with based on whatever activities you enjoy, whether that's arts or sports or reading or, so I think there's lots of opportunities to build community. I think the other thing that we're really working hard at the University of Waterloo is around our equity as well, because we know that there's a lot of we know that students often don't feel a sense of belonging, or they feel isolated because there isn't that sense of inclusion and diversity. So through our equity office, there's lots of training. We're doing a lot of training around anti-racism and getting people to understand the importance of diversity and appreciation and respect for everyone on campus. So I think that's another great way that we're trying to build community as well.
And Jennifer, I'm going to ask another question for you if you know this one. A student was wondering, are there supports available? Like, does that begin right on the first day? If a student is moving into residence, for example, to start their first year and maybe just need to see someone right away, going through that whole process, what sorts of things can a student do on day one?
Yeah, so actually that's a great question, because it does begin the day that that you step foot on campus, that the term begins. So that's why I think it's so important that if you have some very specific needs, that you call us sort of over the summer and you make sure that whatever documentation you need to be transferred over, so that it is a really smooth process. So all of that documentation is there. So the very first time you maybe are connected to the mental health professional or physician, they have all that background information so that they can hit the ground running with continuing your care.
And for students who perhaps are arriving on campus for the first time and maybe have never sought counseling services or anything like that before, would they be able to, in an in-person environment, walk into health services or campus wellness and find the supports they need from day one then?
Yeah, so as I said, the very first thing we do with any new student that comes to seek our services is you get connected to an intake specialist, just to get that background and understanding what they're there for. But yeah, what I probably maybe didn't mention is during regular non-COVID times, we actually do have walk-ins and we have same-day appointments, we have single session appointments, and even that's what we find. A lot of students maybe just need that one appointment because and then they walk away with a plan. That's not always the case, but often students just really need, in the moment or in the moment of crisis, someone to talk to. And that's why I said if it's not counseling, sometimes it's something like Mates or Empower Me or another peer support on campus. But yeah, lots of different ways that you can access counseling. And if you've never done counseling either or never connected with a mental health professional, I think Ben said this, like, always reach out. Like, we'll connect you with whatever service works best for you. There's also in all of the faculty's academic advisors. So, and they also receive some background mental health training. So if you're struggling with academics and grades and you don't know what's happening in some of your courses or your sort of path, they might be a great first place to start, because some of that stress of that academics does eventually sometimes, turn into a mental health. So starting even with your academic advisor and asking those questions, and if they can't answer them, they'll refer you on to counseling. So as I said, there's no wrong door. We're really trying at Waterloo to make health and wellness everyone's responsibility, and just making sure that we're all providing supportive conversations and making sure we're getting students to the right place at the right time.
I think that's a great point. Not to let not knowing where to start prevent you from starting, because kind of similar to what we do at these Waterloo Wednesdays, we encourage students to ask questions, and if we don't know the answers, we direct students to the experts, and that's like so many different areas of campus that are used to saying, I'm not the person who can help you, but I know who is. So that's great to know. I'm going to direct a question over to Ben next. And Ben, you kind of hinted at this a little bit in some of the information and the experiences that you've talked about, but I was wondering if you could maybe give our listeners an idea of the ways that you're connecting with your friends and with your classmates these days, but maybe talking about some of the platforms you're using to get some social time together or whatever it may be. I know you've mentioned a couple already.
Yeah, for sure. So last term, when I was taking classes, Discord was a really popular one. Someone had made a Discord server called Virtual Campus, and they made different channels for things like study rooms or like one titled library. They all kind of did like the same thing, but it was just having like kind of like a designated virtual space where people could meet up. For example, like, if we were working on something, we all said like, we're gonna go to study room 1 to work on this, and that worked really well. And it also worked for like playing games like Among Us together, because we were able to like share our screen and things like that. Netflix party works well. So that's kind of the way I'm staying connected digitally. And then virtually, it's just been nice to have roommates to be around and spend time with at the end of the day. And also there's like, I think like the regular phone call is also just underrated. Like sometimes just getting a call out of the blue is awesome. And sometimes like people are just like waiting for that call, and they like, and you'd love that call too. So yeah, phone calls are great.
Right, and something I just saw, actually, I think that was last week, our Student Success Office at Waterloo announced, they had a pun, a really good pun that I'm going to ruin, but I think it was called the Pandemic Pals, I think it was called. So for our current students, they are connecting them to be able to just communicate with someone they've maybe never met before at Waterloo, which is pretty neat. Okay, Ben, I'm going to send another question to you. So that's chatting about how you're connecting now. I'm wondering if you can think back to first year when you first arrived at the University of Waterloo. How did you like meet other people? Did you come with friends, or were you just kind of thrown in on your own there? And did you meet people through residence? Was it through your program? Or what sorts of tips can you offer a prospective student on ways that they can just meet people when they're new to a university environment?
Yeah, coming to university, in high school I had like a pretty tight group of friends. So it felt weird like trying to make new friends when I got to residence, but I found what helped was just showing up for stuff. So I would make sure I would go to our weekly floor events. Like a really popular floor event that we had was watching The Bachelor every week, and we kind of have like a top 5 pick of who we thought was going to make it to the end and end up getting that final rose. So that was something to look forward to. I got involved with intramurals. I love to play soccer, so that was something that I would do. Oh my gosh, what else? I got involved with some different sports, and even just meeting people like in my program, like sitting next to them in class, and just like spending some time with different people in residence. But getting involved with different groups where you have like a regular meeting time every week is a great way to go about it, and go by interest too. Like it's time, like it's a great time to figure out something new to enjoy with other like-minded people.
When I was a student in residence, our weekly TV show was Grey's Anatomy, and that was, I think, season 2. And we still get together every week, 16, just kidding, imagine, 16 years later. Yeah, okay, so I have one more question that I'd like to pose to Jennifer. And so, Jennifer, we kind of talked a little bit earlier about how we're often directing students to the resources, if we're not the resource that they need. And oftentimes for students, the supports that we want to offer them to make sure that they have everything they need to really thrive at Waterloo, don't necessarily fit into neat little categories of health services and counseling services. And oftentimes there's going to be other resources that they'll need to take advantage of on campus. And so can you talk a little bit about other areas of the university that campus wellness often connects with in order to ensure students have everything they need?
Sure. So accessibility office is a big one that we connect with. So if you need, whether it's physical accommodation or mental health accommodation, that would be something that is usually required documentation from a healthcare professional. So that might be somewhere where you come to campus wellness, and then we work with accessibility to make sure you have those accommodations, whether it's for your physical ability to move around campus or in classrooms, and or whether you need accommodations for writing tests or recording lectures or things like that for your academic success. So definitely accessibility. I saw in the thread there were questions about residents. So Campus Wellness works a lot with residents because we want to build health and wellness programs into the places where people live. So we often work with campus residents. We often work very closely with athletics as well. So athletics has some great programs. I think Ben mentioned Move Your Mind. They also have a great new facility, and they're just reopening the PAC SLC, which is the physical activity complex, which I think is going to be ready probably in the next several months or so. Don't quote me on that, but a huge new facility with renovations for gym and studios for athletics and dance. And so we connect with them, and we also connect a lot with food services. So that's where I would also say if certain students have dietary requirements, food services has a registered dietitian that will work with the student and with the chef on campus to make sure that that student has the appropriate meal plan for them. So yeah, a lot of things. And even, as I said, with faculties, like we're really trying to build relationships with faculties so that they can build wellness right into the classroom. And I know the Center for Teaching Excellence also does a lot of professional development for faculty members and professors about how to make sure lectures and the work they're doing in the classroom is what's called universal design. So making sure that it can be designed for any learner. And I think that's really important to wellness. So lots of great wellness work happening at Waterloo.
All right, Laura, before we turn it over to you, I don't have any more questions related to this, but one question that we did have come in was about the track at Waterloo, and we were trying to figure out a response here. But for the student who asked about that, if you want to email the Warriors info email, there are 2 tracks nearby that our students and our track team do use. There is an indoor one just on the other side of Waterloo Park. And then there's another one a little bit further down University Avenue at one of the local high schools that our team does use. But I bring this up because of another promo for Waterloo Wednesdays. We do have our athletics crew joining us on April 14th. So you can learn more about our varsity programs and our facilities on campus, as well as campus recreation. And again, this really important topic that connects with the one that we're talking about today, and staying or for students' positive well-being at university. So just wanted to get that in, but I'll turn it over to you now.
Great point, Jay, and also a great one to tune into if you like sports. Okay. So we are going to wrap up by letting you know about a few additional resources. There we go. And actually this week we wanted to do something a little bit new and feature an article that's on our Beyond Ideas website. So if you haven't checked it out, uwaterloo.ca/beyond-ideas is our student blog site that has all kinds of really helpful content for high school students. So it has stuff about, transitioning from high school to university, but ways to make the most of your high school experience. And it's got a lot of great articles like this one, which is all about looking after your mental health in high school. So that might be something that you'd like to check out if you're looking to read a little bit more about how you can improve wellness, where and when you are right now. Oops, going a little too far there. So as Jay mentioned earlier in the session, of course, we've got our weekly series of Waterloo Wednesdays. We'll let you know in just a second what next week's topic will be. We've got Grade 10 Family Night coming up on February 18th for any of our younger students. You can order some of those shiny brochures that Jay was kind of waving around earlier online if you want to kind of get your own Waterloo library that you can flip through at home. And of course, you can always send us questions to liaison@uwaterloo.ca. And if we don't know the answers, we will direct you to someone who does. Okay, so I teased it a little bit, but next week our topic is scholarships and financial aid. As always, that will be next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And yeah, that is all from us for now. We hope that you enjoyed the session this evening and benefited from learning more about campus wellness at Waterloo, and hopefully you have some tips that you can take away as probably high school students as well, which I imagine most of our audience is. And once again, I'll encourage you to take that information, and regardless of which post-secondary institutions you might be looking at, think about how you can access those resources wherever you end up. So that's our last little tip for you. So thanks once again to Jennifer and Ben and to our other teammates who were working away behind the scenes in the Q&A. And thanks to our audience for joining us, and we hope to see you next week. Take care.